All right, we're a little lively this morning. It's great to hear. My name is Peter. I'll be your MC today. Thanks for joining us. Another great edition of 1 Million Cups. Always a reminder to download the 1MC app. If you don't have it already, please download it. If you already have it downloaded, please check in. Allows us to track who's here, who's in attendance. Also allows us to track it nationally as well. Always thank you to our sponsors. Allow us to do what we do here every Wednesday morning. Keeps the lights on, the coffee, everything that we have is thanks to these sponsors. So please, if you see them, thank them. If you have an opportunity to give them money, give them money. All right, any newcomers? Anybody, this is their very first time at 1MC? All right, lots of hands, perfect. Well, thanks for joining us first of all. And just so you understand what 1 Million Cups is, free weekly program. We invite somebody or multiple people up on the stage, tell us a little bit about their idea, their business. How can we, as a 1 Million Cups community, help them be successful, and how can they help our community as well? I also am going to promise next time that I am MC, I'm going to have an estimate how many cups of coffee that we've have up to this point. So the idea is, how can we share 1 million cups of coffee and change our community? I'm going to see how we can get to, not even an estimate, an exact number of cups. Kate, you're going to help me with that? Okay. Perfect. All right, remember to use hashtag 1MCND throughout today's session, but throughout the week as well. If you guys have questions for the speaker and a little mic shy, you want to use the hashtag, just do that on Twitter, and we will ask that question later on. All right, so now we're on to the community announcements section. So if you have an announcement, please come up to the stage.
Well, good morning. The City of Mandan next week has their Mandan Business Pitch Competition. So Tuesday, November 12th, you'll hear from 4 new entrepreneurs in Mandan that are pitching their business concept to a panel of judges, and then they grade them, and the winner gets a really nice prize package from the City of Mandan to start their business and have some economic impact for the community. Also, so that's Tuesday, November 12th at 5:30 is when those pitches start at the Baymont Inn. Also, next week's 1MC will have 2 of those businesses, Cold Country Coffee and Invited Events and Rentals, on our 1 Million Cup stage. So if you can't make it to the pitch competition Tuesday evening, just come back here Wednesday morning and you'll hear from 2 of them, okay? Thank you.
Any other community announcements? Any birthday parties, fish fries, anything? Okay. All right, well, let's get into our speaker then. Today we have Jeanne, I wanted to say Jeanne, it's Jeanne. Okay, Jeanne with Legacy Talent Development. So trusted by organizations such as Bismarck Aero Center, Capital Credit Union, ND Courts, Baker Boy, and many more. Legacy Talent Development creates mentoring and leadership programs for organizations large and small. They help companies build high-impact workplace mentoring programs and leadership peer groups. Their customized consulting, training, and coaching propels leadership capability to drive business results. Please help me welcome Jeanne.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning. Oh my gosh, look at all the great smiling faces out there. What a pleasure to be with you this morning to have a good cup of coffee, great conversation, and tell you a little bit more about Legacy Talent Development. Legacy Talent Development is a company I launched 5 years ago to really focus in on growing leaders. Before I tell you a little bit more about how we do that, I thought I'd share a little bit about my background that maybe got me to this point, right, in launching Legacy Talent Development. So a couple of things you should know about me. I'm a Bismarck Mandan native, so grew up in Mandan, North Dakota, and yay, woohoo! I'm with my peeps. And so like many of you, I found that it's a great place to raise a family, right? It's like phenomenal place to just be around family and be surrounded by friends as well. The second thing you should know about me is I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit. I've had this in my DNA for as long as I can remember. My parents were business owners, and so I've always leaned into this idea of hard work, but yet freedom and control over my work. And for those of you who are business owners, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And the third thing I would tell you is that I am a learning and development junkie. I absolutely love the learning environment, and whatever shape and form that takes, I'm all in. I'm naturally curious, so events like this and 1 Million Cups, whether we're learning about startups and new entrepreneurs in our community, whether we're taking continuing education classes, or whether we're in an academic environment, I'll just eat it for breakfast. Just give me more and more. I absolutely love being around it. I did my undergraduate work in industrial psychology, went on for my master's in human resource management, and I would say that was really the solidification of me saying, I want to be in the people development space. This is where I want to grow in terms of the human side of the business, right? How do we elevate the human side of business? And so from there, I jumped back in after graduate school. I jumped back into academia because, again, it was like my home away from home. But I worked in the continuing education departments. And so I worked with business and industry to create a variety of training and development for their employees. So it was anything from like a one-day Excel class to a multi-level leadership academy for many organizations, and ultimately formal mentoring programs. I tell you that because those 15 years, and to jump back, right before launching Legacy Talent Development, I worked in the energy industry leading a team of learning and development professionals. So that was a span of 15 years. But those 15 years were so important to me because they were really they laid the groundwork for Legacy Talent Development. And I want to tell you, I had a front row ticket to watching how leaders evolved. And I noticed how the really great leaders, they just sparked something in their employees, right? They had great conversation. They built these fabulous relationships, and many of them were incredible mentors. It's like people wanted to work for them. People, they didn't even care about the department. They're just like, I want to work for him, right? Or I want to work for her because of all of the great leadership that they brought to the table. So that groundwork was really important years. In 2014, I found this great point in my career professionally and also on the personal side where I was able to say, I want to scratch that entrepreneurial itch, finally. And in 2014, it launched Legacy Talent Development. Now, Legacy Talent Development specializes in three things. The three things that we do really well is, first of all, create and craft structured workplace mentoring programs. Second is running or facilitating peer advisory groups. And the third thing that we do is one-on-one professional coaching. What makes us a little bit unique is that we work really closely with each client. And so I like to say we're really always co-creating the ultimate solution. So when I work with a client or a business industry comes to me, we say, what is the most critical talent challenge that we're trying to solve right now? Where is that pain point, if you will? Where's the gaps? And how can mentoring, peer advising, and or one-on-one coaching help solve that critical talent challenge? So it's a lot of fun. Most of our relationships last long-term. So I'm working with clients at least on a year-long basis. I'll talk a little bit more about the mentoring programs that oftentimes are anywhere from 15 to 18 months. So we're not only professional colleagues, but we're also fast friends. So the very first, in 2002, so 17 years ago, we had the first mentoring client come to us, and there was a little bit like this. It was like, we've got this issue. We've got this talent issue. We have this huge retirement bubble that we see coming, and we have all of this institutional knowledge, right? These folks have an incredible amount of subject matter expertise. They have historical perspective of the business, and they have all this institutional knowledge. And can we just clone them, right? As they retire, can we just kind of clone them and add more to our workforce? So that was a great point 17 years ago where we got to say, let's start building this thing, and let's see what this looks like. At the time, mentoring in the workplace as a structured initiative was something that was maybe talked about on the national front, but we hadn't seen a whole lot of it in North Dakota quite yet. So at that point, we started talking about what does mentoring look like. So to put it in context, all of us have had mentoring experiences, and if I asked every one of you, well, what the heck is mentoring, right? What is your definition, and how would you look at it? We would probably get multiple definitions, right? So I just like to put it into context. My definition of mentoring is social-based learning through the context of our professional world and through the experience of others. So social-based learning through the experience of others in our workplace. So the cool part about this is mentees have an incredible opportunity to learn from those experienced folks. Of course, that learning is important. The other important piece is the social component, because that social component and working one-on-one together with a mentor in a mentoring relationship helps increase what we call learning stickiness. So in training and development, many of you have been to, of course, training events, and we hope that when we attend a training event, that skill or aptitude, whatever it is we're trying to accomplish, we hope that that's a bridge and goes back to the workplace and we apply it. With mentoring, that's all off the table because we're in a social relationship, and what happens is, of course, mentees work with their mentors, and they're gaining some type of competence, some type of skill, some type of knowledge, and they're going back to the workplace and they're immediately trying it out. There's no delay. They're going back, they're trying it out, they're failing, they're succeeding, they're tweaking. And so there's this constant iteration process that happens with mentoring, which makes it so incredibly powerful. So mentees gain a lot out of that relationship, as you can imagine. Now, the thing that we don't talk about a lot is what's in it for the mentor? Right? What do the mentors have to gain? And I'll tell you that mentors oftentimes will report that they gained more out of the relationship than the mentee did. Oftentimes they'll say that they gained a brand new perspective of the organization and that they indirectly repaid their mentor who got them to their level of success or helped them achieve a level of success. The other thing that mentors talk about are the friendships that are formed. I've got lots of great stories, but I just got another one on Monday. So it was talking one-on-one with a mentor who was 5 weeks into their mentoring relationship. And this person is a senior manager. And I kind of opened up the conversation, how's it going? And he said, you know what? We say in this organization that we're having these conversations, but we're really not having these conversations. Like he said, I've never had this conversation before my mentee. And he said, I am gaining such an incredible friendship out of this mentoring program. I really don't know why we didn't do this a long time ago. And I'm like, an incredible friendship 5 weeks in? It's pretty awesome. So mentoring, my role in mentoring and helping organizations with mentoring is multifaceted, but basically we're looking at the design of the program. How do we, when we start building this thing, how do we look at who are our mentors? Who are our mentees? Who's not eligible to be a mentor or mentee? What is the most critical talent challenge we're hoping mentoring is going to help us solve? And how do we design the initiative around that gap? So there's a lot of upfront design work. Then when we launch, we're doing, of course, a lot of training and development for our mentors and mentees. We're giving them curriculum, materials, as well as a whole playlist of possible opportunities that they can take advantage of throughout the duration of what's oftentimes a year-long partnership. And then I think one of my most important roles in helping businesses with mentoring is looking at either return on investment or return on expectations. So two really important things that we talk about when companies make an investment in a mentoring program. How do we then show that those resources we put into mentoring yields a return on our investment and or a return on our expectations? Sometimes I'll work with senior managers and they say, if we just can have these 5 folks mentor these 5 folks and we have a good succession plan, that's it, right? That's my expectation. So that's my role in mentoring programs. Sort of a natural progression to my work in mentoring programs for the last 17 years has been this evolution of peer advisory groups. Now, peer advisory groups go by multiple names, but what I like to call them is very simply leadership think tanks. So these leadership think tanks, regardless of what we call them, the concept is this. The concept is there's a group of like-minded people who come together for the sole purpose of being each other's personal board of advisors and success team all rolled into one. They commit to a trusted, confidential relationship, and they commit to ongoing meeting on an ongoing basis. Now, if this concept sounds a little familiar to you, it's probably because you've either read an article or maybe have heard about some of our brightest leaders of yesterday and today being part of a peer advisory group, because they know that being a part of a group can take them to greater levels of success either that day or the next day, and start implementing back in their workplace. So there's a lot of clarity that comes with these conversations and comes with these partnerships. The second thing I'll say with an accountability group, with a peer advisory group, is accountability, right? Accountability for achieving those big goals that we all want to achieve. Now, I might be alone in the room when I say that sometimes when I set a goal and I tell myself I'm going to do A, B, or C, sometimes I fall a little short. Sometimes I give myself a pass, right? Sometimes it's this happened, that happened, I got busy doing this. In a peer group, that does not typically happen because when we promise those peers that we are going to have A, B, and C done by the next meeting, and when we say, I want to knock out this goal, that goal, I want to elevate this area of the business, we do not want to come back the next meeting and say, I just didn't get to it, right? So that accountability is absolutely critical part of the peer advisory boards that I facilitate as well. The third area of specialty is focusing on one-to-one coaching. Now, as professionals looking around in the room, all of you are professionals and business leaders, you know that part of our success is knowing the business, knowing our trade, knowing our industry really, really well. And most of us have gotten to that point, right? We know our business very well. What we sometimes fail to appreciate is how our self-awareness and how our leadership skills are ultimately linked to our success as well. That's where one-on-one professional coaching comes in. I oftentimes say that in one-on-one coaching, we are going to uncover all the blind spots. We're going to find our strengths, we're going to find our weaknesses, we're going to find our quirks, we're going to find our biases, right? We're going to dig all of that up and talk about it. In my one-on-one coaching, I'll say that I wear a few different hats. I would say an accountability accelerator. So part of my role is to help us set really high goals and to knock those goals out of the park. I'm also a thought leader or a thought partner for that individual that I'm coaching. And I'll also say that my role, one of my most important roles, is to be a very keen listener and good question asker, right? Because I want to ask the really hard questions that folks won't either ask themselves or don't want to be asked, either way. And together, I think the most fun part about it is that we find a tremendous amount of clarity. Find that most of us, especially as leaders and managers, we want that impact. We want to create that impact, and we have great intentions, right? All of us have great intentions, but sometimes either our actions or our words aren't telling the same story. So we're finding ways to help create the impact that we intend to create as leaders. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Peter. And as he comes up, I want to just tell you, if you've never been a part of a formal mentoring relationship, or maybe if you don't really understand what coaching is, I would encourage you to just turn on the TV because two shows in particular. One of my favorites is The Prophet with Marcus Lemonis. And the other one is The Voice, just to see how that intense coaching for a short period of time can really help catapult success.
All right, let's give Jeanne a round of applause. Thank you, Jeanne.
Thanks.
And we'll move on to the Q&A section of today's 1MC. Tyler will be our mic runner, so if you have a question, please raise your hand. You can also use hashtag 1MCND if you'd rather ask it via Twitter. So let's take a seat here, put you in the hot seat. And by the way, I love The Prophet. My last name is Pomonis, so I thought that like Lemonis and Pomonis would be a good TV show name. But
you guys could have been like collaborators in crime,
I
right?
know.
Partners in crime.
Yeah, definitely. All right.
I never miss an episode. I'm a junkie.
Yeah,
Prophet
I love it
junkie.
too. Tell us a little bit more about the company itself, when you got your start, and maybe the current stats of your company, how many employees, and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so, well, we started in 2014, so we've been at this about 5.5 years. We have those 3 areas of specialty, so we don't technically have any employees. I have what I call associates. So I have, not quite Marcus Lemonis, but partners in crime that collaborate with, and they really bring different skill sets and different specialties to the table. So that's part of the fun, is when I work with a client, I can say, gosh, well, I don't specialize in that area, but I know someone else who does. So other professional coaches, sometimes there are other types of coaches that I collaborate with, and certainly other experts in terms of training and development expertise.
Okay. What are some of the most common issues or problems that you are seeing in today's workforce, and what do you do to kind of help with that?
Yeah. Well, from the employer perspective, we're always talking about turnover, right? We're always talking about how do we tackle turnover and how do we increase retention, especially with those hard to fill positions and with those very specific maybe talent pools. And so getting or capitalizing on our investment, as we know, it takes a lot to hire an employee, to recruit them, to keep them on staff, and then be fully productive. And to capitalize on that investment is really important. So definitely turnover, definitely kind of passing of the torch as we see one generation, typically baby boomers retiring. And then we have this smaller bubble, which I'm in part of, right, which is the Gen Xers. We're more independent. I'll speak for myself. I'm more independent and a little more stubborn than I think I see my millennial counterparts. So my millennial counterparts, I find that are highly collaborative. So when we look at what do employees want, they want that collaboration. They want to learn from other subject matter experts, and they want to say, let's get all the ideas on the table and brainstorm. So those are kind of 2 different vantage points of what I'm seeing.
Sure. And are most of your clients, at least to this point, somewhat local? Or are you doing any digital efforts elsewhere? Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so I do very little digital, with the exception of professional coaching. I really take my coachees lead in terms of how they want to meet. What I find is that we're still fairly traditional. We want to meet with our coach face-to-face sometimes, but other times we use Zoom, which has been a phenomenal piece of technology. So that's definitely one part of it. What was the other part of your question, Peter? Sorry.
Yeah, just generally, are most of your clients local up to this point?
Yeah. So most of my clients are within North Dakota for sure. I also work in Minnesota. I'm working with a client out of Manhattan, so it's evolving and expanding.
Very cool. You talked a little bit about ROI and being able to prove the ROI. Mm-hmm. Have you found good ways to do that, or is that still kind of a challenge you're working through?
There's definitely good ways to do it. The challenge is that we need to have the metrics and the measuring stick. It doesn't have to be a number, but we have to know the measuring stick going in. So the challenge becomes when we say, what is the turnover, and contrast that. And then we can even chunk it out even more. So what's the turnover like among mentors? What's the turnover like among people who have been mentees? And there's been some fascinating data. I worked it was last month. I was talking with an organization that went through this with a fine-tooth comb, and what they found was that in this organization, if you were a mentor or a mentee at any point in their 5 years of mentoring, we had a 76% less turnover, 76% less turnover with our mentors and mentees. Mentors were the least turnover within the entire organization. So that's one metric. We also find that expectations are a big deal. So senior management typically has some kind of expectation that they're either thinking about or hoping for, and to have them be able to articulate that and be able to tell us, how are we going to know we're successful?
And along those same lines, when you talk about ROI and maybe when you first got your start and you're pricing out your services, it might be helpful for anybody who has their own service-based business or thinking about starting their own. How did you begin to even price out those types of services?
Well, short of throwing it at the dart, right at the dartboard. Well, I think that's to your point, that's where those 15 years really came in. A lot of times you say, well, gosh, didn't you wish you would have started the business earlier? Yeah, of course. But those 15 years gave me kind of an inside look at pricing, certainly of mentoring. And then just having friends in the same space, friends and colleagues, I think gave me a good, but every client is different, so it's a little bit art and a little bit science.
Perfect. Reminder, oh, Kate, question. Sorry, I've been kind of asking away here.
I know I'm short, but come on. Jeannie, thanks for being here. Can you give us a couple examples of maybe cross-gender and cross-generational mentor-menteeship? So a younger mentor and an older mentee, and then maybe a female mentor and a male mentee, and maybe what you've seen across some of those boundaries.
Big answer, one of the huge initiatives that we're seeing, and really I think one of the fuels to formal mentoring now, is all of the diversity and inclusion initiatives that we're seeing on the national front. So 10 years ago, we didn't have chief diversity officers working, right, and chief inclusion officers working in organizations. There wasn't such a thing. We also used to talk about the different types of mentoring, and we used to say, well, this is reverse mentoring, right? A younger person mentoring an older person. It's just mentoring, right? So I usually say that mentoring, there are no boundaries. There's no geographic boundaries. There's no gender boundaries. There's certainly no age boundaries, right? We can all learn from each other. And in fact, oftentimes we'll call the mentor the advisor and the mentee the learner, because those words are more inclusive, and it lends to our day-to-day interactions, right? At 8 o'clock, I might be the learner, and at 1 o'clock, I might be the advisor, depending on the meeting that I'm in. So lots of different examples. I would say that one of the, I don't want to call it struggle, but one of the things that folks will sometimes say is, gosh, I'm like for example, this person said, I'm a mom who's raising a family, and I'm being paired with a male who's higher up in senior management, much older than I am, doesn't have a family, he's single. How did you make this match? And the matches are made based on competencies, right? Based on what the mentee is hoping to learn and hoping to achieve, versus what the skill set that the mentor brings. So we typically don't take those types of things into account unless we're specifically looking at fulfilling a diversity and inclusion effort.
Question in the front.
Yeah, thanks so much. For the stat that you said, 76% of folks who are in a mentor-mentee relationship, so that probably speaks to the quality of the mentorship program. So what are some pieces that make for a good mentoring program? Because some large-scale organizations may have like a makeshift or a check the box, we kind of do those kinds of things. So if you could speak just a little bit, like a few pieces that make for a good quality program.
Absolutely. It sounds so easy, right? Mentoring sounds so easy. Like we've got seasoned people, experienced people, we're going to match them up, and we're going to say go forth and do well. I would say that's the biggest mistake, is not training mentors and mentees. What does a good relationship look like? What can I have, what expectations can I have as a mentor that I should be fulfilling as a mentor, and same for the mentee. So I would say structure is number one. In terms of how are we going to meet, when are we going to meet, how are we going to communicate. So to lay those ground rules and to have that playlist of solutions for mentees to drive their development is really important, because you and I can have a great cup of coffee and we can have lunch together and we can talk all day long. If we don't have those goals etched and be working towards those goals, it's a great friendship, right? So structure in terms of goal setting, structure in terms of training and development for the mentors and mentees. And then I would say the number one thing that we sometimes overlook is support for the mentor. The mentees are being supported by the mentors, right? But who's supporting the mentors, right? If the mentor gets caught up or they're going, gosh, I've got this challenge, how do we support them? Oftentimes, mentors are the linchpin of our mentoring programs. When mentors are equipped and when mentors are happy, we have successful programs.
Question in the back.
Hey, Jeannie. Certainly you've had a lot of experience in this space, and you've probably had a lot of mentors as well. Can you think of something you've learned from one of your favorite mentors that guides a lot of what you do maybe daily?
Yes. So one of my favorite mentors lives on the East Coast, And there's so many things that I've learned from her, but I'll just give you a handful of them. First of all, if you have the opportunity to work with a mentor and someone who's willing to mentor you, for example, this person works in the consulting space, in the learning and development space, and I sort of hit the jackpot when she said she would mentor me because she's, light years ahead of me. But I'll say this, meet them where they're at as the mentee, right? So we meet at 6 a.m. on Tuesday, every other Tuesday morning, because that's when it works for her. And she jokingly says, there's nobody else that wants to talk to me at 6 a.m. So I would say meet them where they're at. And do whatever you can to meet them and also add value to them. As a mentee, you bring value to your mentor as well. The other piece I would say that she introduced me to is the concept of you are the average of the 5 people that you surround yourself with. So choose wisely, right? That guides me almost every day. It certainly does. It certainly guides our peer advisory boards.
This is a little bit of a selfish question, but I think other people would find value in it as well. But you seem like a person that would have really good recommendations for like self-help books and resources. Do you have any favorite authors or books that you would maybe recommend people read?
I've got the playlist and then some, right? Probably ad nauseum. I would say self-help, right? I like to chunk it down into more definitive categories. One of the best books that I think for personal accountability and that self-awareness is Extreme Ownership. If you haven't read Extreme Ownership, it's a great book. It's about Navy SEALs, and basically there's 2 authors who served in the military. The book is also great on a historical perspective because they'll talk about the actual combat scenario, the lesson they learned in that scenario, and then because they're now out of the military and consulting, they equate it to business and industry as well. So it's a fascinating read, but has some great nuggets in there as well. Some of my go-tos, otherwise you probably know these 2 already, but one of the things that I highly recommend for all of us busy folks are TED Talks, right? You can easily search TED Talks and listen to them in the car or listen to them on commutes, as well as Audible. Audible, for me, has been a game changer. It's the only way I consume reading, at least reading books anyway. So tap into Audible and TED Talks.
Perfect. Let's go back to kind of the business side of things. Are there any specific industries that maybe you've gotten your foot in the door that have been really successful for you? And then along those same lines, what do your marketing efforts look like? Is it mostly word of mouth, or talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. I think that for whatever reason, I don't know if I'm attracted or I'm attracting to financial industries. So I've worked with a number of credit unions, banks, financial and insurance trust types organizations. I've also worked with a lot of different manufacturing firms, so kind of polar opposite there in some respects. But I'll say that one of the most robust, probably the most robust leadership academy I've had the good fortune of working with came out of a manufacturing firm, and it was fantastic. Yeah, absolutely fantastic. My marketing is definitely a work in progress. You can find me on, of course, Facebook and LinkedIn. Of course, we have a website. But yeah, for the most part, it's word of mouth and working with clients who are spreading the good news.
Yeah, Tyler, go ahead.
I didn't realize we had a semantics controversy, but mentor versus mentor. Every time I hear mentor, I'm thinking centaur. And so, like, what do I become a mythical four-legged creature when I start? Centaur. Oh, sorry. So I wasn't pronouncing that right. But I say mentor. I don't know. An interesting slide you had up there, the office space slide, where you're saying it'd be great if you could clone yourself. Mm-hmm. I'd imagine that's a big issue for you as well. You talked about kind of your ecosystem and your network of associates that you lean on. But for your skill set specifically, how do you manage your bandwidth and prioritize which clients you're going to spend your finite time on?
So I think we oftentimes talk about time management, right? How do we manage our time? And for me, it's really about managing my energy. So I'm a morning person. I know that I'm going to be on my game right away in the morning. And so for me, it's a little off topic, but I'm going to come back. I'm getting there, Tyler. I can't stress enough how important it is as business people that we tap into that and know, when am I doing my best? When is my deep work? When do I slot that in my schedule? And when's the best time to just like return email, right? Or maybe just pay some bills or whatever it may be, right? Some of the non-thinking type of work, that's been absolutely critical to me. So oftentimes I'm carving out my morning, hopefully starting it out with a workout, then carving out time in the morning to do my deep work, and then doing client meetings either later morning, earlier afternoon, and then doing the busy work towards the later part of the day. My ecosystem is made up of organically of folks that I trust. So it's experts, again, that's where that 15 years came in, where I met folks in the lots of different trainers, lots of different subject matter experts, people who are certified in areas that I'm not certified in and don't really need to be certified in, but yet we need their expertise at certain times, especially throughout leadership academies. So to bring those folks in and I trust them, I know that they're going to deliver time and time and time again.
What does the future hold for legacy talent development? Where do you see your company in, let's say, five years from now?
Yeah, great question. So one of the things that I foresee is mentoring isn't going away. I think mentoring is here to stay, and if anything, we in professional spaces are talking more and more about mentoring. We're absolutely blowing the doors open in terms of, I work with one and know of a group that has literally 9 types of mentoring programs within that organization. Granted, they're 20,000 employees, but mentoring is here to stay. So I definitely see mentoring exploding. One of the things that I offer my clients is that playlist of curriculum and tools. I'd love to be able to package that in a way that it's more universal for organizations that maybe don't contract with me, that want the toolkit. So making that available for purchase would be definitely on my radar. The other piece of it is we know one-on-one coaching and peer advisory groups are also exploding. And kind of as I alluded to before, I think that the millennials and their collaborative nature are just going to continue to foster that. So more to come.
Very cool. Question in the back?
Yes, so my question was that when looking for a mentor, like what are the pros and cons for looking, like should you look in the organization that you're in? Should you look more for your skill set and who knows the best? Like what are the pros and cons to choosing a mentor and finding something that works best for you and your skills that you're looking to build?
So the biggest piece of that is knowing yourself, right? Knowing where you want to grow and knowing what type of person that you would like to connect with. Oftentimes mentors will say, well, this person asked me to mentor them, but they didn't know what they wanted. They didn't know what they needed. They didn't know where they wanted to grow. So it's really hard to help from the mentor's vantage point when we don't know where we want to go. So that's the number one thing I would say is be really articulate about where you need to grow or where your the skill set that you want to gain. And then before you even reach out to a mentor, I would say do a couple of things. First, be crystal clear on what kind of person that you're looking for. So for example, when I was looking for, when I launched Legacy Talent Development or shortly before, I knew I wanted someone in this industry space that had a good amount of experience, and I kind of had a hunch that they wouldn't be from North Dakota. And so I had a really clear picture of who that was. I personally would always choose a mentor based upon skill set, based upon what areas of expertise they have and what I can gain from them. I don't think there's a bad choice in terms of whether it's internal or external. I think the luckiest people have mentors inside their organization and outside of their industry.
Yeah, great question. Maybe we'll get into the last question here. Tyler, would you please do the honors?
Jeanne, thanks so much for taking some time with us this morning. Last question we ask every week, of course, is how can our 1 Million Cups community here in Bismarck and Mandan support you in legacy talent development going forward?
Awesome. So the first thing I would say is how many of you right now can think of an area that you've had success in? Just by show of hands. Just one area of your personal life or professional life that you've had success in. You can think of that area. So lock that in. I would encourage you to mentor someone. We need more mentors, specifically in our community, right? We can never have enough mentors. Whatever came to your mind first, that's where you start. So mentor someone because we all need a mentor in that area, right? We all need a mentor. We all need your expertise at some point in our careers. So that's maybe a community-based initiative. The second thing I would say is if you are interested in the one-on-one coaching, reach out to me or visit my website because if we're not a good match, I know I think most all of the professional coaches in our area, and or know where to point you to find a very subject matter expert coach. And the last thing I would say is, if you're interested in being surrounded by some really high caliber professionals who are going to help you deep dive and help you be more accountable to achieving your big dreams and goals, I would encourage you to do one of two things. Check out our peer advisory board, which is an external board, and or download. I've written a free white paper that's available on the website, absolutely there for the taking whenever you have a chance, about how to find your peer advisory board.
Great. Well, Jeannie, thanks for you for joining us this Wednesday, 1 Million Cups. Give her another round of applause. Hope to see you next Wednesday. We will have a couple members of that business pitch challenge that Tyler talked about. So be here next Wednesday at 9 a.m. Have a good rest of your Wednesday.